What's the most chaotic thing that ever happened to you at a self-checkout? I popped into the grocery store for exactly 2 bananas and left as the accidental union leader of self-checkout lane 3. The plan was fast, in, out, potassium. But the self-checkout kiosks were acting like moody teenagers, beeping, sulking, declaring phantom items in the bagging area. Mine froze right after I scanned a banana and, for reasons unknown to science, also purchased a shovel. A clerk in a neon vest waved a magic scanner like a wand and said, "Try again." The kiosk considered, then announced, "Call attendant," in a voice that could haunt castles. Behind me, a line formed, a woman with a baby, a man carrying exactly 6 lines like he'd been cursed by margaritas, and a retiree guarding a cake. The baby was fine. The cake looked stressed. Lane 1 went down next, then lane 4, like a polite power outage marching left to right. The store's soundtrack had been pop. It switched to elevator jazz like management was trying to sedate us. A voice on the intercom said, "Attention shoppers, our self-checkout is experiencing personality issues." Everyone laughed with the shallow relief of a sitcom audience. I pressed bananas again. The kiosk asked, "Is this item organic?" and gave me 2 options, yes and abandon hope. I tapped yes. It suggested the code for dragon fruit. I'm not a confrontational person, but I threatened the machine with composting. The retiree behind me leaned in and whispered, "Type 4011. It's the people's code." Suddenly I was inducted into a secret society of produce knowledge. We typed 4011 together like we were launching a rocket. Success, a beep that sounded like a smile. The cake unclenched slightly. Then the register froze again and decided I had placed a gallon of milk in the bagging area, which was untrue unless it meant the concept of milk. It yelled for an attendant. The neon vest woman had vanished to reboot a kiosk with a paperclip and prayer. The lineman, perhaps sick of citrus destiny, stepped up and said, "We unionize now." He meant we cooperate, but the phrasing stuck. We formed a microcouncil, me on bananas, lineman on codes, cake guardian on crowd morale, baby on percussion. When the neon vest returned, she looked at our gathering and promoted me with a sticker that said, "Hello, I'm helping." Suddenly I had authority and 0 training. We began solving. A teen with a basket full of mysterious squash approached, trembling. "Acorn?" he asked. Lineman whispered, 4750, like passing a state secret. The teen entered it and we cheered like a touchdown. The baby clapped, the cake approved. A young couple tried to buy a single onion and an engagement ring plant, didn't know that was a thing. The kiosk attempted to price the onion at $22.99 per pound as if onions were jewelers now. I overrode nothing, no power, but loudly declared, "We reject onion inflation." The neon vest, hearing the tone of the people, manually adjusted to 99 cents. We applauded, the onion blushed. Half an hour into my 2-banana mission, I controlled traffic like an airfield marshal. I taught 3 people that cilantro and parsley are the same price but different in spirit. I mediated a trolley jam where a man, a woman, and an end cap of barbecue sauce tried to occupy the same spacetime. I learned the cake was a retirement cake for a librarian named Joyce, who had dedicated 42 years to whispering at decibels that could move mountains. Then the system went fully down. All kiosks flashed a screen that said rebooting, 2 o'clock, and, for entertainment, counted to 2 minutes in slow dog years. We looked at each other like stranded hikers. The intercom piped, "We appreciate your patience," and played a corporate jazz flute solo that weakened morale. Lineman said, "We need a speech." I climbed onto the smallest, sturdiest thing I could find, a case of sparkling water, and held my bananas like microphones. "Friends," I began, because once you're on a pallet you have to say friends. "We have gathered in aisle self to face a common foe, error codes and existential pricing. But we are more than scanners. We are produce code rememberers. We are cilantro/parsley decoders. We are banana identifiers." A cheer rose, louder than jazz flute. Even the security guard smiled, which I think is illegal. The reboot finished. Kiosks revived one by one, like baby deer figuring out legs. The neon vest assigned me temporarily as flow captain. I waved people to the screens as they lit up. 2 is alive. 7's awake. 4 is thinking about it. We got weirdly efficient. When Lane 5 tried to charge a woman for bagged atmosphere, I recommended she lift her toad and set it down with confidence. This, apparently, satisfies machines. It worked. We're brilliant. Finally, I scanned my second banana, paid 42 cents, and received a receipt that was 30 inches long and full of coupons for cat litter. I do not own a cat, I do own newfound power. People high-fived me like I'd landed a small plane. Joyce the librarian let me sign the cake box. Lime Man asked if I was there every Tuesday. The baby fell asleep, exhausted from leadership. As I left, the intercom announced, self-checkout is fully operational. Thank you to our temporary captain on lane 3. I bowed to the salad bar, which is where I believe human life began. Outside, the sky looked cleaner. The bananas felt heavier, like metals. And when I passed a crate of dragon fruit, I saluted, because while I didn't buy one, I finally knew its code. On the walk home I memorized 4011 twice more, just in case Destiny tried to test me at another register.
What's the most surreal wedding mix-up you've been pulled into? I checked into a hotel for a boring conference and got drafted into a wedding like the universe had clicked. Surprise me. The front desk clerk wore a boutonniere and adrenaline. Welcome, cousin, he said, handing me a key card with a flourish. Rehearsal is on the rooftop in 10. I am no one's cousin within a 200-mile radius, but the energy was contagious, and the alternative was 3 panels on disrupting disruption. I said, right, the rooftop, like I'd always belonged. Upstairs, a swarm of people in coordinated navy and hope were fretting about a missing usher. A woman in a headset, event planner, general, pointed her clipboard at me and said, "You. Ties or chairs?" I picked chairs. I can do chairs. I stacked, unstacked, and suddenly I was in the choreography, part of the human conveyor belt that transforms asphalt into a memory. The missing usher remained missing. Someone handed me a tie and declared, "Congratulations, you're on team seating." The bride, radiant, focused, floated over, thanked the universe out loud for sending extra hands, and told me she loved my shoes, which is how cults start. She needed someone to cue the string quartet's soft entrance. When Grandpa sat, I became the grandfather whisperer. The groom's aunt pressed a corsage into my palm and said, "Pin me like you mean it." I watched a YouTube tutorial in a corner behind a potted tree and emerged certified in angles and respect. The rooftop view was wedding propaganda, a skyline that made everyone briefly believe in tax brackets, a golden sun rehearsing for the photos. We ran through once, twice, then the wind tried to relocate the floral arch to a rival rooftop. I anchored it with 2 sandbags and my optimistic body. The planner saluted. The quartet tuned. A small cousin practiced dropping pedals on beat. The real ceremony began, and I stood discreetly by the door like a friendly gargoyle, monitoring Grandpa and the string cue. People cried at appropriate intervals, I cried on a delay. When it was time for Grandpa's entrance, I nodded to the cellist with gravitas I borrowed from the moon. The music swelled, Grandpa took the aisle like a movie star at a matinee. The bride and groom exchanged vows that included the phrase, "backup snacks," which told me they were going to make it. Then chaos, the officiant's mic died mid-sentiment. For 2 seconds, the skyline heard nothing. My hands moved before my brain did. I sprinted to the DJ, stole his spare mic with a gesture of apology, and relayed it down the aisle like a football in a rom-com. The guests cheered, a nearby building cheered, somewhere a pigeon cheered. The vows finished on a wave of relief that smelled like peonies and triumph. Reception. I attempted to bow out, but an uncle with the charisma of 3 game show hosts asked me to MC the shoe game, because the original MC had lost his voice to excitement and champagne. I said yes with the confidence of a man who owns exactly 0 tuxedos. I practiced names in a corner like I was studying for oral exams. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "it's time to learn who knows who's Messier." Laughter, unity. We discovered the groom is Messier by a margin of socks. Somewhere between toasts and cake, I found the actual usher, lost in a stairwell because the elevator required a key card and pride had prevented him from asking for help. I liberated him, gave him my sticker name tag, "Hello, I'm helping again," and set him to guarding the gift table like a knight who has RSVP'd. The first dance happened under string lights that did their job in a way that felt personal. Aunties led a conga line that made the structural engineer in me a little nervous, but the roof held. I talked to Grandma about the price of tulips in 1962 and she gave me unsolicited financial advice that involved a jar labeled "Tax Goblins." I will be starting one. At checkout, the front desk clerk asked if the conference was transformational. I told him I'd learned to pin corsages, cue cellists, and bargain with wind. He slid me a sticky note, "If you want weekend work, we pay in cake and gratitude." I pocketed it like a golden ticket. On the train home, my suitcase smelled faintly of peonies and SPF, the to-go cake became breakfast. I texted my group chat, "If anyone needs an emergency usher, my rate is 1 slice plus unlimited chair time." 3 friends responded with weddings in the next 6 months and 1 high-risk barbecue. That evening a thank you email went out to the helpers. My name wasn't on the list, so they added a PS, "To the mysterious cousin who saved the mic, may your shoes always be complimented." I printed it and tucked it behind my conference badge. If anyone asks what I learned last weekend, I'll say the best sessions happen on rooftops, and family is whoever hands you a bouquet and means it.
What's the most dramatic pet-sitting adventure you've had with a not-so-domestic pet? I agreed to pet-sit a bearded dragon named Sir Reginald because the owner said, "He's basically a pancake with opinions." Day 1, easy, warm lamp, tiny salads, aristocratic stares. Day 2, I opened the terrarium to replenish his arugula thimble, and turned away for 3 seconds to sneeze. In that time Sir Reginald executed a military operation. When I turned back, the habitat contained heat, furniture, and the faint suggestion of lizard. The internet says lost bearded dragons often stay nearby. Mine had apparently read a different internet. I checked under the couch, behind books, in the shoe I never wear. No dragon. I placed his favorite hidey cave on the floor, like a baited stage, and waited. Nothing but the quiet sound of me reevaluating my life. I DM'd the owner, currently at a wedding in Maui. "How stealthy is Reggie?" She replied with a photo of him wedged behind a toaster and wrote, "He's a rumor." I built a search grid like airport security. A neighbor tapped on my open door, drawn by the words, "Lizard missing." She said, "I'm between jobs." I searched like it's a calling, and produced a flashlight the size of a baguette. 2 kids from down the hall asked if this was detective work. "Yes," I said, deputizing them with sticky notes and purpose. We established a command center at my coffee table, labeled LIZOPS. Phase 1, warmth traps. We place warm towels in sunny rectangles, because dragons like heat like I like compliments. Phase 2, salad diplomacy. A runway of bell pepper bits led from under the bookshelf to the terrarium like breadcrumbs for royalty. Phase 3, politely panic. I texted, "He's not venomous, right?" Maui replied, "Only to anxiety." At dusk, a small commotion erupted in the hallway. A teen skater had spotted a tiny dinosaur under the radiator by the elevator. We approached with the calm of bomb technicians. Sir Reginald blinked at us like we were the ones being peculiar. I offered a warm towel. He ran across it with contempt and wedged himself into the most inconvenient crevice available, a gap behind the building's decorative baseboard. LIZOPS convened an emergency council. Stan, retired engineer, patron saint of my building, arrived with delicate tools and the aura of a man who has opinions about screws. He examined the baseboard, listened to it like a seashell, and announced, "We can remove this without scarring the wall if we proceed like surgeons." The kids, wearing bike helmets for morale, nodded solemnly. We deployed 1 flashlight, 1 mirror, 1 baby carrot on a string, bait, 1 roll of painter's tape to label the screws, as if we were preserving archaeology. Sir Reginald negotiated, by which I mean, he ignored us for 40 minutes and tasted the baseboard for clues. The mirror revealed exactly 1 smug eyeball. We dimmed the lights. The room temperature rose to Florida. I hummed a song from a nature documentary because it felt correct. The carrot did nothing but make the kids hungry. Finally, Stan loosened the last screw, lifted the panel 6 millimeters, and whispered, "Now!" I inserted my hand in slow motion and felt the soft, prehistoric weight of a creature who pays rent in vibes and heat lamps. He calmed the second he felt warm, as if the mission had always been to create community theater. I returned him to his heated throne, where he basked with the gravity of a Roman senator. The kids applauded like we captured a comet. My neighbor wrote "case closed" on a sticky note and slapped it on the command map. Stan signed the baseboard with a pencil, rescued on today's date, and refastened it flush like nothing had ever happened. I sent Maui a video of Sir Reginald eating salad with imperial dignity. She replied, "That's his I-1 face." She offered to Venmo me extra. I countered with a request for her carrot ginger dressing recipe, which she sent because we had been through a war together. The kids asked if we could start a lizard patrol as a permanent institution. I said yes, with jurisdiction expanding to missing Lego and runaway socks. For the rest of the week, Reggie behaved like a Victorian gentleman who'd scandalized society once and learned nothing. Every time I lifted the lid to deliver tiny vegetables, he peered at me as if to say, "Ready when you are." I started narrating his life in a nature documentary voice. Here we see the house dragon, contemplating an audacious yet poorly planned escape across the sofa savannah. He blinked approval. On the last day, I wrote him a note. "Dear Sir, thank you for the adventure. Please stop bolting when I sneeze." On his owner's return day, I gave a full debrief complete with a hand-drawn map, a screw index, and a certificate proclaiming Sir Reginald most likely to decline capture politely. The building kids requested a graduation photo with the dragon. He tolerated it like a celebrity at a small-town parade. After they left, I realized the apartment felt weirdly quiet without a tiny monarch assessing my choices from a sun lamp. I washed the warm towels, restocked the arugula, and taped our LIZOPS map inside a kitchen cabinet door like a battle standard for future guardians. If anything else in the building goes missing, a mitten, a marbles bag, a sense of proportion, LIZOPS stands ready, flashlights charged, carrot on a string, optimism on high.
What's the most accidentally iconic Wellness Week your office ever attempted? Our company announced Wellness Week with a PDF so pastel it could lower your blood pressure through color alone. Monday was mindful emails. Tuesday, walking meetings. Wednesday, juice and journaling. Thursday, no meeting day. And Friday, talent show optional, not really. I approached with cautious optimism and 2 granola bars. By Friday, I had collated a conga line around HR, negotiated peace between a blender and accounting, and accidentally won a trophy shaped like a cucumber. Monday's mindful emails began with a workshop where we were taught to start messages with a breath. I sent my first mindful email to finance. "Good morning, smiley face. With gratitude, may I have a receipt for expense number 442? The reply arrived 4 seconds later. "No," I breathed out mindfully. We were supposed to use fewer exclamation points and more kindness. Our sales team developed a punctuation neutral D. That hit legal with the force of a confetti cannon. IT added a signature that said sent with calm, which was aspirational but pretty. Tuesday's walking meetings went feral. Someone forgot to book the sidewalks. 12 teams circled the block in opposite directions, waving like parade floats and occasionally merging into a traffic jam by the bagel place. A product manager wore a headset and narrated his steps like a sports commentator. We're pivoting left. We're pivoting right. We're low on hydration. Our CEO tried to walk and slack at the same time and drifted into a plant. Spirits were high, shins less so. Wednesday was juice and journaling in the break room with a blender the size of a jet engine. Operations attempted beat juice. The blender answered with a noise that reordered molecules. Beat confetti covered 3 departments, 2 laptops, and a fern. We pivoted to carrot ginger. The blender came around. People journaled things like, "I will hydrate like someone who believes in kidneys," and "I forgive Q3. Accounting refused to write feelings until the carrot juice hit. Then they wrote a saga about vendor aging that made us cry. Thursday promised no meeting day, which we celebrated by scheduling meetings to plan how to honor no meeting day. After a brief collective shame spiral, we canceled them all and sat in a silence so loud you could hear keyboards developing trust issues. Productivity spiked. Someone rediscovered the joy of eating a sandwich without screen sharing it. I finished a report that had been aging like a fine, neglected cheese. Friday's talent show was optional, the way gravity is optional. The sign-up sheet featured juggling, harmonica, origami, and I can identify 47 fonts from smell. I had planned to clap quietly, but someone needed an MC. I found a blazer that says, "Trust me," and a microphone that says, "You'll regret this." We opened with a junior dev solving a Rubik's Cube while reciting digits of pi and also maintaining eye contact, which should be illegal. Marketing performed a synchronized slide deck transition. The room hooped like it was Coachella for spreadsheets. Halfway through, facilities rolled in a cart with the cucumber trophy, a glossy, verdant object that implied both health and mischief. The plan was to award it to the act that most nourished morale. Then the fire alarm went off because the blender had opinions about its outlet. We evacuated in orderly chaos. In the parking lot, someone started a rhythm on a recycling bin. Another someone added a kazoo. Our CEO clapped on the downbeat, and I feared for earnings. We turned the evacuation into an outdoor finale. HR performed a medley called Boundaries, Reprise. A sales rep tightroped a parking lot stripe with astonishing sincerity. When the building pronounced itself less alarmed, we re-entered buzzing. The cucumber trophy still needed a home. I was about to hand it to HR for the boundary medley when the CFO stood and delivered a deadpan haiku about cash flow that made the room ascend. The trophy wobbled in my hands like a divining rod. I stalled with an improvised wellness sermon about community, hydration, and unplugging the blender before it dreams of war. Then IT patched the mic, and the crowd started chanting, "Speech! Speech!" like they were summoning morale itself. I announced, "The cucumber of glory goes to all of us," and placed it on the office plant like a jungle crown. Boos turned to laughter. Someone shouted, "Communism!" I amended. Specifically to facilities, for saving our outlets, and to HR, for shredding meetings, and to accounting, for their tragic epic, and to the blender, for teaching humility. We took a picture around the plant. It looked like a band photo for a group called Boundaries and Beats. That afternoon I checked my email. The mindful reply from finance had evolved into, "Good morning, receipt attached herb. I cried a tiny, hydrated tear. We ended Wellness Week by actually doing something well. We left at 5, no laptops, no guilt, just a Slack status that read BRB, touching grass. I walked home in the surprising quiet of a city that occasionally puts its phone down. At a crosswalk, a stranger tapped my shoulder and said, "Is that beet juice on your collar?" I said, "Wellness," and we both acknowledged each other with the kind of grin people reserve for good inside jokes. On Monday, the blender was labeled, the trophy lived on the ficus, and our inboxes exhaled like they'd learned to breathe through their noses.
What's your funniest theme park day that refused to follow the plan? At dawn we arrived at the theme park with the optimism of pilgrims and a spreadsheet titled Ride Order, Snacks, Emergency Cho Plan. Our team, me, my cousin who treats maps like video games, his girlfriend who can smell shade from 50 yards, and a friend named Matt who wore a hydration vest like he was running an ultramarathon through cotton candy. We were here for Thunder Gull, the park's legendary coaster that looks like a physics lesson having a midlife crisis. Plan, rope drop, be first in line, scream responsibly, then retire to gentler pursuits like air-conditioned pirates. Reality, Thunder Gull was temporarily delayed by 9:03 a.m. for routine heroics. A flock of superfans in matching Gull hats gasped in unison. A teenager wearing a lanyard labeled "Ask Me Anything Except Refunds" explained that maintenance found a bolt expressing individuality. New plan, nimble reroute. We zigzagged to Meteor Mugs, a spinning ride that simulates both joy and a blender. Matt insisted spinning before breakfast was data collection. 10 seconds in, my atoms wrote their wills. We disembarked sideways and staggered to a bench shaped like a moon. A nearby toddler pointed and announced, "Wobbly." Accurate. Thunder Gull remained shy. We pivoted to shows, souvenirs, and a tactical cho to steady faith. At noon, a push notification chirped, "Gull, flying at 12:45. We power-walked with the grace of people who had made promises to inner children. The queue snaked like an anxious dragon. An older couple behind us confessed they'd met in this line in 1999 and return every year to argue about snacks. Aspirational. The line became a civilization. We traded sunscreen, backstories, and rumors. Someone claimed Car 3 is the smoothest. Someone else said Car 3 is haunted by a seagull spirit named Denise who demands scream tax. A kid in a cape asked if velocity is heavier than gravity. A physics teacher in cargo shorts said, "Today, yes." I started a call-and-response chant, "Gull. Gull." That gradually turned into gull noises because humans are doomed and delighted. We neared the loading platform. An operator with the charisma of an ex-radio DJ gave a speech about lap bars and respect. The air smelled like steel, sunscreen, and destiny. We boarded, Car 4, close enough to haunted. The climb clicked like a metronome for drama, the horizon unfolded, the first drop coiled under us like a rumor. Hands up, eyes watering, we dove. The world turned into wind and choice. The on-ride photo would later reveal I make the same face for joy and mortal terror. Mid-ride, a small flock of actual gulls escorted us like benevolent sky rice. Denise? I cannot confirm. On the brake run we screamed again because the human body is mysterious. Matt declared himself cured of land. My cousin cried a little and blamed the wind. We exited into sunlight shaped like triumph. The app pinged, "Gull, delayed." We had snuck in between heroics like pros. While high on accomplishment, we made our only mistake, splash quarry. The posted splash zone looked theoretical, it was not. On the third drop the boat flogged us with water like we owed it money. A stranger in the back shouted, "My socks have joined the SA." We staggered out like we'd been baptized into a very specific radius. Matt's hydration vest briefly considered unionizing with the quarry. We squelched to the air-conditioned pirates and pretended to be dry. The ride broke down mid-plunder, which gave our animatronic hostages time to think about their lives. A baritone pirate got stuck on Yoho for 3 minutes and then suddenly finished his thought with bursitis, which felt personal. We were granted evacuations and a free cookie voucher that clearly could not heal us. Late afternoon, parade time. We stood in the shade behind a family with elaborate homemade crowns. A performer dressed as a friendly asteroid waved, tripped, recovered with a grand jeté, and the crowd applauded like we'd collectively coached resilience. A marching band hit a key change that made my bones applaud. A toddler saw the park mascot and screamed with joy. Dinner, skyline fries with push notification salt content. Our spreadsheet told us we were precisely 14% behind schedule. Matt's vest informed us we were 100% hydrated. We bought one ridiculous souvenir hat shaped like a miniature roller coaster car. I wore it because leadership requires sacrifice. As the sun angled dramatic, Thunder Goal reopened for a twilight sprint. We joined the line with the older couple from 1999. They had resolved the snack debate, pretzel, and adopted us. The queue felt like a reunion. The operator DJ gave a sunset sermon, hands up for joy, hands down for comfort, screams at your soul's discretion, and off we went again. The sky poured gold into the track. The drop felt longer, kinder, somehow grateful. We closed the park knowing only two truths: we would never be dry again, and the spreadsheet had become art. On the way out, a last-minute fireworks show painted the parking lot with oohs and ahs. An employee announced, "Denise says goodnight," and a gull perched on a light pole like a manager. In the car, we compared favorite moments and salt crystals. Matt unzipped his vest like a final credit scene and produced 4 emergency churros. We ate them in silence that said everything. The next day my neck hurt in the exact shape of Carrefour's first drop and my shoes made sounds like sleeping whales. I opened our spreadsheet and typed a new row, post-ride nap, mandatory. My cousin added, "Learn to trust Denise." We scheduled next year like people who politely ignore the passage of time, and I washed my shoes with a gratitude usually reserved for people who hand you a bouquet.